Blood in the Pines Part 10. The ash settled like black snow across the scorched main street of Cedar Hollow. The fires had died down, leaving only glowing embers and the haunting stillness of a town that had just barely survived the end of the world. Eli stood slowly, his limbs aching, ribs screaming with every breath. Rowan offered him a hand. Her claws had retracted, her eyes dimming back to human, but her expression was hard, guarded. "You good?" she asked. "Define good," Eli muttered, wincing. Mara limped over, her hair singed, her jacket torn. She looked like she'd walked out of a war zone because she had. "Well, Sheriff, we just killed a vampire king, saved the town, and possibly pissed off a whole generation of ancient monsters. How's that for a Friday night?" Eli let out a weak laugh. "I've had worse shifts." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the last of the Hollow One's ash drift away in the wind. But it didn't feel over. Rowan was the first to speak. "Did you feel it?" Eli nodded. "When he died, something shifted." Mara frowned. "What kind of shifted are we talking about? Like cosmic, magical, or, oh crap, we broke a seal kind of shift?" Rowan's jaw tightened. More like something ancient got unlocked. That sent a chill through Eli's spine. "You think he was holding something back?" he asked. Rowan didn't answer right away. She looked out toward the woods, the edge of the town where the pines swayed gently in the wind, hiding secrets too old for words. "I think Malachi wasn't the only one buried," she finally said. Mara groaned. "Awesome. Love that for us." Later that night, the three of them gathered in the church, the one where this all started. The coffin Malachi had come from was now a heap of rusted metal and scorched wood. But beneath it, Rowan had found something else. A seal, carved into the stone floor, glowing faintly with symbols none of them recognized. It hadn't been visible before. Only after Malachi's death had it appeared, lit by an unnatural pulse, almost like a heartbeat. Eli stared down at it, his skin crawling. "What the hell is it?" Rowan crouched near it, careful not to touch. "A lock. Or a prison." Mara lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "So Malachi was the warning shot?" Rowan nodded. "Looks like it." Eli leaned back against the wall, his mind spinning. "I thought we were dealing with one monster. Now it sounds like we're dealing with something older." Rowan looked up at him. "We are. Malachi was ancient, sure, but even he was afraid of what lies beneath." The room fell into silence again, and then, as if to confirm their worst fears, the seal cracked. Just a hairline fracture. But enough. From somewhere deep beneath the church, a low rumble echoed, and a voice, distant, distorted, inhuman, whispered through the crack. He was only the first. Outside, the wind howled through the pine trees, and far, far beneath Cedar Hollow, something else woke up. The next morning, the town felt like a ghost left behind after its own funeral. Cedar Hollow was silent. No sirens, no chatter, no birdsong, just the uneasy groan of a place still recovering, still watching. People hadn't come out of their homes. Some never would. Eli stood on the church steps, sipping burnt coffee from a paper cup and staring out at Main Street. Ash still clung to the sidewalks. The town smelled like blood and wood smoke and something older beneath it all. Rowan joined him, eyes shadowed, her hair still streaked with dirt and dried blood. "No one's talking," she said. "It's like they're all pretending it didn't happen." Eli nodded. "Wouldn't you?" Rowan didn't answer. She just stared out across the town, jaw clenched. Behind them, Mara was in the church basement with a makeshift team, scratching together what they could from old books, relics, and symbols Rowan had etched from the cracked seal. They had questions, but no answers, only the whisper. He was only the first. Down in the basement, Mara clicked on her flashlight and crouched near the seal, now spiderwebbed with cracks. The light caught something, a glint of teeth in the stone, or maybe just the illusion of them. "Rowan," she called up. "You're going to want to see this." Rowan descended, boots echoing on the wooden stairs. She stepped beside Mara and squinted at the seal. Symbols had changed. What had once been a closed circle now showed gaps, tiny slivers of void in the design, leaking dark smoke that vanished on contact with air. "Did you touch it?" Rowan asked sharply. "No." Just noticed it spreading. Whatever's down there, it's waking up. They both looked at the largest crack, which had grown since the night before. That's when the voice returned. This time louder. Open it. Mara took a sharp breath. Did you hear that? Rowan was already on her feet, backing away from the seal. Yeah, and it wasn't talking to us. Back upstairs, Eli was on the phone with the coroner when the church lights flickered, then died. A low hum filled the air, a vibration that buzzed through fillings and bones and glass. Eli dropped the phone. The front doors of the church burst open. Standing there was a man, or at least something wearing a man's skin. He was tall, in a long brown coat stained with dried blood, wide-brimmed hat hiding his eyes. He walked in slow, steady steps down the aisle like he owned the place. Sheriff Eli, the man said in a rasping voice, I believe you have something that belongs to me. Eli didn't reach for his gun. He didn't have to. Rowan came up from the basement behind the man, quiet as a shadow. But the man knew. Without turning, he said, Daughter of hunger. You follow your instincts well. But I'm not here for you. Rowan stepped into view. Who the hell are you? The man finally looked up, and his eyes were hollow. No pupils, just two bottomless wells of black, like the pine forest at midnight. I am the second. The seal below pulsed in the basement. Mara shouted from below, We've got a big problem down here. The church trembled. The second smiled. You let the king die, he said. Now the throne is mine. He opened his coat, and what was inside wasn't flesh. It was writhing, a mass of fangs and eyes and shadows shifting in impossible ways. Eli took a step back. Oh, hell, he whispered. The second raised his hand, and Cedar Hollow's nightmare began again. The church exploded in motion. The second's outstretched hand sent a wave of shadow howling through the sanctuary, ripping pews from the floor, shattering stained glass, and tossing Eli like a rag doll across the altar steps. Rowan lunged with a snarl, claws bared, her beast form flickering through her human skin. She struck the creature across the chest, and her claws passed through it like smoke. The second laughed. I am not made of what you understand, it whispered. I am made of hunger. I am the echo of what comes next. Rowan rolled to her feet, blood on her lips. Then let me send you back to hell. Below the church, Mara stood at the edge of the cracked seal, watching it pulse like a living heart. The basement shook. Dust rained from the beams above, and in the center of the seal, something had begun to rise. Flesh, twisting, breathing, a third presence, another one. Oh no, Mara breathed. They're coming through. Back upstairs, Eli crawled behind the pulpit, fished out the backup gun taped beneath it, his grandfather's old revolver. 6 silver bullets. They'd worked on Malachi. He prayed they'd work now. He fired. Crack. The bullet hit the second in the head. His skull snapped back, dark ichor spraying across the aisle. He staggered, but he didn't fall. The second turned slowly toward Eli, head crooked, smile widening, that thing inside his coat still writhing. Oh, Sheriff, it rasped. You'll need more than silver. Suddenly, the church floor split open. From the basement, a howl erupted, a bone-chilling, stomach-twisting shriek that was not human, not animal, something worse. The seal had finally shattered. A third figure crawled from the basement in a cloud of soot and sulfur. It was small at first, gaunt, naked, skin stretched tight over bones. But as it moved, it grew, its body warping, reshaping into something massive and unnatural. Dozens of mouths opened across its chest. Eyes blinked beneath its skin. It looked around the church, hissed, and then smiled with all its mouths. The second stepped back, bowed his head slightly. Behold the third. Eli cursed. There's a damn lineup. Rowan didn't flinch. She turned to Eli. We can't let them both leave this place. Mara climbed out of the rubble. Too late. They're not alone. Through the shattered church windows came the crackling sound of footsteps. People, townsfolk, dozens of them, stumbling forward with blank eyes and bloodied hands. Not hollow ones, not possessed, just called, drawn to the chaos, to the new masters. Eli loaded another bullet. Rowan took a defensive stance. Mara held a flask of accelerant and a lighter in one hand, whispering something in a dead language she swore she'd never use again. They were 3 against an army. Again. But this time, the enemy was worse than royalty. It was primordial. It was coming through. And Cedar Hollow might not survive the night. The dead moon rises. The third stood beneath the crumbling rafters, taller now, its limbs stretching with each heartbeat. Bones cracked, skin peeled, and from its chest bloomed a grotesque black flower of mouths, each one whispering in different tongues. Latin, Sumerian, something older. Rowan backed toward Eli, eyes locked on the beast. It's not a vampire. It's not even alive. Mara lit the flask in her hand and hurled it. It exploded in flame against the third side, but the creature didn't scream. It simply absorbed the fire, its body bubbling, reforming like meat left in the sun. "Oh, hell no," Mara hissed. The second raised his arms, voice like thunder. The seal is broken. The flesh temple opens. The dead moon rises. The town bell tower across the street began to toll, though no one had touched it in decades. Bong, bong, bong. Each ring made the townspeople outside twitch. Some collapsed. Some laughed. Others began to bleed from their eyes, noses, and mouths, but they kept walking toward the church, driven by something beyond pain. Underground, where the shattered seal had once pulsed, something new was emerging. A pit, blacker than space, had opened beneath the foundation. From it rose a structure, like a rib cage made of cathedrals, stretching into the abyss. Fleshy vines wrapped around ancient stone, lit by glowing runes. The whole thing beat like a heart. And deeper still, at the bottom of the pit, eyes opened, dozens, hundreds, thousands, watching, waiting. Rowan grabbed Eli by the collar. "We need to collapse the church, bury the pit, seal it however we can." Eli coughed blood but nodded. "There's dynamite in the mine storage. Couple blocks north. We can still." A sound cut him off. A scream from the sky. They all looked up and saw it. The moon. It had turned black. A total eclipse, but the edges weren't glowing. They were bleeding. Red rivers dripped from the sky like veins had burst in the heavens. It wasn't an eclipse at all. It was the dead moon, and it was watching them back. Back inside, the third began to chant, not with a voice, but with all its mouths. The language bled into the air, turning it thick and oily. The walls of the church cracked. Symbols carved themselves into the pews, the floor, the bones of the dead buried in the cemetery. The second stepped beside the third and whispered, "The gods you forgot are coming home." Rowan looked to Mara. "I've got a spell," Mara said, eyes wide. "It'll burn me out. Maybe kill me. But it can stop one of them." Eli grabbed her hand. "We need both of you." Mara shook her head. "You need a world to save first." Outside, the sky had torn open. A rift spilled across the clouds, exposing something massive, moving, alive, too big to fit in the sky, too ancient to name. It had wings of smoke, a body like a mountain, and a crown of rotating eyes. It was falling, descending, and as it neared, every living thing in Cedar Hollow dropped to its knees, except Eli, Rowan, and Mara. Mara stepped onto the altar, pulled a jagged knife from her coat, and carved a sigil into her palm. Blood poured onto the floor, mixing with the ashes of the first seal. "By the old flame, by the bound light, I cast you back into the night." The third screamed, now aware. It surged toward her, but Rowan was faster. She tackled the beast mid-charge, fangs out, driving her claws into the pulsing mass of its chest mouths. "Now, Mara," she roared. Mara's body began to glow. Eli turned his head away. He couldn't watch. Then white fire. A shock wave blasted through the town, turning trees to cinders, buildings to skeletons, and time to glass. The third howled, burning, twisting, breaking apart. The second faded into ash, whispering one last thing before vanishing. "She's coming next." The church collapsed. When the light faded, Eli opened his eyes. He was buried under debris, coughing ash, ribs shattered. Rowan pulled him free, her face pale, her body broken but still standing. Mara was gone. Not a trace left, only a scorch mark on the altar and the faint scent of burning sage. Above them, the dead moon still bled. The seal may have broken, but the gate wasn't closed. And somewhere in the black sky, as she waited, watching, smiling, she waits beneath the world. Cedar Hollow was no longer a town. It was a crater. Smoke curled from the wreckage, glowing red beneath the soil. The pine trees that once lined the hills stood as black skeletons, their limbs pointing like broken fingers toward a sky that wasn't right anymore. The dead moon still hung above, no longer eclipsed but opened, a tear across the night, through which something watched the earth with patient, maternal hunger. Eli and Rowan stood at the edge of the church ruins, the air thick with sulfur and grief. Mara was gone. The pit below sealed again but not destroyed. And something had been left behind. Something whispering. Underground, where the ribcage cathedral had risen, there was now a single object. A cradle, carved from obsidian bone. Inside it, a child, curled and sleeping, wrapped in veins of red silk. Not human, not vampire, not beast, but something new. Something born of fire, shadow and blood. Its heart pulsed in the ruins like a war drum. Rowan could feel it. It's hers, she said. Who? Eli asked, half afraid to hear the answer. Rowan turned to him slowly. The mother below. Eli blinked. The what now? She was the first, Rowan whispered. Before gods, before blood, before time. The vampires worshipped her in silence. The witches feared her. The wolves howled for her in the old world. She pointed to the sky. That's her eye. The dead moon blinked. Back at the edge of town, a military blockade had failed. Radios went silent. No one came. The world had noticed something wrong, but it didn't understand how wrong. The internet was full of rumors. Sinkhole swallow small town. Terrorist ritual site uncovered. Freak eclipse event over Midwest. They didn't see the truth. Didn't feel the way the soil pulsed like veins. Didn't know what was gestating in the earth. Eli paced, running hands through his blood-crusted hair. So what do? We can't just raise the thing. We're not demon daycare. Rowan shook her head. We don't raise it. We stop it. Before it wakes. Before she wakes. But even as she said the words, the cradle cracked. A tiny hand reached out. It had claws, and from the sky a voice boomed. She was the seal. You broke her. Now I come to reclaim what was mine. The wind died. The ground split open again, not just in Cedar Hollow, but across the globe. Cracks in deserts, in oceans, in cities, and through them came her voice. My children shall inherit the ash. Flash to Rome. The Vatican collapses into a pit. From the catacombs beneath, red mist spills upward. Monks scream as they burn from the inside. Flash to the Arctic. A research station is torn in half by a claw the size of a battleship. Something old stirs beneath the permafrost. Flash to a suburban home. A baby monitor plays lullaby music. Then static. Then a whisper. The daughter is born. Back in Cedar Hollow, Rowan fell to her knees. She's coming through me, she gasped. Eli grabbed her shoulders. Rowan, stay with me. You're stronger than this. She looked at him, and her eyes were black. No pupils. No light. Just the night sky inside her skull. I was a key, she whispered. I always was. She smiled, and her mouth opened too wide. From it came a scream that shattered every window in town and called the monsters home. In the skies above, the dead moon peeled apart like a flower of flesh, and from its center, descending through the clouds, came her, the mother below, clothed in shadows and stars, wearing faces of the dead, her voice a lullaby of extinction. She sang, and the world began to rot. The birth of the end. Rowan's scream had cracked the veil between realms. The sky rippled, torn like old paper. Trees shriveled, rivers boiled, and birds fell dead mid-flight, not shot, not poisoned, but erased like they had never existed at all. She knelt in the ruins of the church, body shaking, hands clawed into the dirt. Her breath was no longer air but smoke, thick, black, crawling along the ground like it had a mind of its own. Eli stood frozen. Rowan. No response. Just that smile. Wide. Black-lipped. Wrong. Below the ruins, the cradle was gone. Its contents no longer an infant. Now a child-sized figure, standing upright, pale skin stretched over thin limbs, its head too large, its eyes pure white, its mouth already full of teeth. It turned to the sky. "Mommy," and the dead moon answered. Worldwide, chaos bloomed. In Tokyo, glass towers turned into monoliths of bone, dripping blood from windows that pulsed like eyes. In Rio, a statue cried tears of rust, then collapsed under a rain of black locusts. In Paris, the Eiffel Tower bent backward, becoming a thorned gate from which spilled figures cloaked in red, speaking backwards and chewing scripture. No country was safe. No border could hold back the rot. Back in Cedar Hollow, Eli reached for his gun again. Shaking, eyes wide. "Rowan, I will shoot you," he warned. "Don't make me." She looked up, eyes now fully eclipsed by the dead moon's glow. "You couldn't kill me when I was just a vampire," she purred. "What makes you think you can kill me now?" Eli cocked the hammer. "Because you're not her anymore." Rowan twitched. Just a flicker of emotion behind the moonlight. "She's still in here. She wants to stop it, but she's buried under so many teeth." Suddenly, the ground burst open beside them. Out climbed the child of the seal. Taller now. Its bones creaked with every step, flesh wet like it had been grown too fast. From its back extended thin, twitching wings, not feathered, not leathery, but made of hands. It opened its mouth, and Mara's voice came out. "Don't trust her, Eli. Don't let her speak. She's the door." Eli froze. "Mara?" The creature smiled, lips peeling back to the jaw. "No," it whispered. "Just what's left of her." Then it charged. Eli fired, twice, hitting the creature in the chest. It stumbled but didn't fall. It just laughed, black blood trickling down its ribs. Rowan stood. The mother's voice came from her lips now, layered, like a choir underwater. "The child is mine. The father is waking. The world will not end in fire, but in hunger." Miles underground, far beyond the old seal, something moved. A hand, the size of a city block, covered in runes and stitched shut with sinew. It gripped the base of the world like it was preparing to pull itself upward. Above, the dead moon birthed another storm, black lightning, red wind, hail made of teeth. The world wasn't ending with a bang. It was being eaten. Eli knew what had to happen. He dove toward Rowan, wrestling her to the ground, trying to reach her under the possession. "Fight it. You're stronger than this. You've always been stronger than me." Rowan snarled, fangs gleaming. "I buried my children," she whispered. "I buried my husband. I clawed my way back. And I will not die without meaning." Something inside her snapped, and for one brief second, her eyes turned blue again. Rowan screamed, and fire erupted from her skin, blasting the child backward into a tree that bent to catch it, like the forest was on her side now. Eli helped her to her knees. "I don't have long," Rowan gasped. "She's in me, Eli, the mother. But if I go to her, if I offer myself back, I can seal the door again." Eli shook his head. "There has to be another way." "There isn't. You know it." She leaned close. "Take care of the child." Eli blinked. "What?" She smiled. "It's not evil. It's just been born into it. Like we all are." Rowan stood tall, skin burning gold, fire crawling up her arms, through her hair. She walked toward the center of the crater, where the sky had split and the veil bled open. The dead moon shuddered, and the mother below screamed. Rowan opened her arms and leapt. The sky folded in on itself. The moon vanished. The rift sealed, and the world fell silent. Eli stood in the ruins, blood on his shirt, gun smoking. Behind him, the child sat in the ash. It looked at him with empty eyes and said, "Is she coming back?" Eli stared at the sky for a long time, then turned. "No, but she gave you a choice." Blood in the Pines, Part 16. Ash Walker. 10 years later. The world is no longer ruled by governments. No presidents. No kings. Only warlords, prophets, and beasts. Eli is gone. No grave. No body. Just a whispered legend. The man with fire in his eyes. said to have vanished into the Badlands with a child cradled in his arms, chased by nightmares that wore the faces of his friends. That child, now known only as Ash Walker, 15 years old, skin pale like bone, eyes white as frost, and a hunger she doesn't understand. Ash Walker wanders what's left of America. Burnt-out cities, ghost highways, forests where time doesn't work right anymore. She keeps her face hidden under a hood. She speaks in whispers, and when she bleeds, it smells like smoke and roses. Everywhere she walks, the dead listen. Some even try to follow, but she's not alone. There's a voice in her head, not her mother, not the mother below, something else, something older. It calls itself Father. The seal was broken, little spark. The world burned. You are my ember. Burn it again. One night, she finds a dying man in the desert, his chest torn open by something with too many arms. He coughs blood and grabs her wrist. You're her, aren't you? The girl from the crater. Ash Walker kneels. Did you see her? He nods. Once. Before the fire. She walked into the sky. Ash Walker leans close. What did she say? The man smiles, lips cracked. She said, she's not your mother. She's your weapon. Then he dies, and from his mouth crawls a spider made of eyes. Ash Walker burns it without flinching. That night the stars scream. Ash Walker wakes up with blood on her hands and a name carved into her arm. Rowan. She didn't carve it. The skin burns. She hears laughter in the distance, thousands of voices, all wearing her own. A city looms on the horizon, built from scrap, bones, and steel. They call it New Gethsemane, ruled by a preacher who drinks blood and keeps angels in cages. Ash Walker approaches the gates. The guards lift their guns. She lifts her hood and smiles. Let me in, or burn. What happens inside the city will change everything. She'll find someone who knew her mother. She'll learn what really happened to Eli. And she'll uncover what's buried beneath New Gethsemane, a cathedral made of mouths, whispering one word. Daughter. The Cathedral of Mouths. New Gethsemane, a city built from the bones of the old world. Cars stacked into towers, skyscrapers wrapped in barbed wire and banners that read, bleed, and be clean. At night, speakers blast old hymns warped with static, and drones hum above the rooftops like mechanical angels with surveillance halos. Ash Walker stepped through the gates with dust on her boots and fire in her blood. Everyone stared. No one touched her, not because they knew her name, but because something in their souls whispered, don't. Inside the city, the streets were filled with false prophets, flesh peddlers, and children with black eyes selling teeth from jars. Every wall bore the mark of the Red Cross, except here, it bled. At the center of it all stood a tower, and at the top of that tower, Father Galloway. Preacher, king, cannibal. He ran the city like a cult, claimed the dead moon had spoken to him, said the apocalypse wasn't punishment. It was a wedding between the old gods and the new flesh, and he was the officiant. Ash Walker found him mid-sermon, surrounded by blind monks and broken sinners crawling like dogs. He turned to her with a grin full of gold teeth and flies. Well now, look what hell spat back. Ash Walker stared. She didn't blink. I'm looking for the cathedral beneath the city. The preacher licked his lips. You mean the place that sings? That's not for walking ones like us. That place whispers in tongues. Even the rats bleed scripture down there. She stepped closer. I hear it already. He tilted his head. Of course you do. You were made from its marrow. Suddenly he raised his hand. Guards surrounded her, blades drawn. You're the key, aren't you? The last one. The one with her mother's fire and her father's rot. Ash Walker didn't move. Her voice dropped to a growl. I didn't come here to kneel. I came to open the door. Then everything went red. She burned them. All of them. The guards turned to ash. The floor cracked. The tower collapsed behind her as she walked into the ground, into the catacombs, into the cathedral, into the belly of the world itself. Below the city it was not stone. It was flesh. The walls pulsed. The air was thick with rot and song. Hundreds of mouths lined the hallway, chattering, chanting, weeping. They knew her name. Ash Walker, daughter of fire, bride of the below. She kept walking. In the final chamber, she found a figure nailed to the wall. Burned, broken, still breathing. It was Eli. Eli, her voice cracked. He looked up. His eyes were gone. His skin was etched in runes. Ash, he rasped. You can't be here. She's waking. She'll see you. Who? He started to weep. Rowan. Ash Walker staggered back. No, she saved us. She died too. Eli coughed blood and pointed to the ceiling, where hundreds of candles dripped black wax. They never die. They just change form. From the ceiling, something dropped. Not quite human. Not quite demon. Burning gold. Hair like flame. Wings made of blood-soaked feathers. And Rowan's face. You grew up so fast, she said, smiling wide. Let Mommy show you the truth. Ash Walker screamed as her skin cracked open, revealing sigils pulsing beneath. And from the walls, the mouths began to sing. Ashes to daughters, blood to flame. The seal is broken, begin the game. The god beneath the skin. The cathedral of mouths burned. Each flame sang a different hymn. And at its center stood Ash Walker, skin split, runes exposed, blood drifting upward like reversed rain. Before her, Rowan, her mother, her savior, her god, but not the woman who once cradled her. This Rowan was crowned in fire. Her feet didn't touch the ground, and when she spoke, it echoed in the bones of the world. You were meant to end this, she said, voice tender, but you're choosing to survive it. You were my gift, my curse, my second chance. Ash Walker's eyes glowed white hot. You said you loved me. I still do. Rowan tilted her head, smiling. That's why I have to devour you. Eli gasped behind her, still nailed to the wall. Ash, don't let her feed. If she consumes your soul, she becomes true God. No veil, no death, just Rowan forever. Ash Walker shook. She remembered being a child, safe in the arms of a shadow. She remembered a lullaby sung in a voice layered with 3 mothers and 1 monster. She remembered the first time she bled black. Why me? She whispered. Rowan floated forward, tears of flame streaking her cheeks. Because I love you more than the world. And love, real love, must destroy what it can't control. Ash Walker clenched her fists. The runes on her arms began to swirl. Her shadow split in half, revealing something buried deep in her. Father, not a man, not a monster, a memory, with a crown of worms, a voice like burning trees. Daughter, end her. Rowan's wings snapped open, dripping fire and feathers. Ash Walker's shadow rose, shaped like a man but moving like smoke. 2 halves of an apocalypse, born to the same wound. And then they collided. The fight was not physical. It was cosmic. Every blow reshaped the cathedral. Each scream bent time. They moved through memory and myth. Ash Walker struck with the grief of orphans. Rowan countered with the joy of birth and the agony of death. Flames became rivers. Blood became birds. And then Ash Walker reached deep, deeper than skin, deeper than soul, and found a word she had never known, N-O. I will not be your weapon. I will not be your daughter. I will be the one thing you fear. She opened her mouth and sang, a song made of loss, of dirt roads and broken lullabies, of the day the moon bled and hope died screaming. The cathedral shattered. Rowan fell to her knees, gold bleeding from her mouth. You weren't supposed to have that power. Ash Walker stepped forward, eyes glowing with her own light now. Not inherited, not given, claimed. I'm not a vessel. I'm not a god. I'm what comes after. Then she placed her hand on Rowan's forehead and whispered, sleep. Rowan vanished. No scream, no fire, just a mother's sigh. The mouths went quiet. The walls stilled. And Eli dropped from his prison, breathing shallow. Ash Walker caught him. He looked at her. You did it. No, she said, tears in her eyes. I just started it. Because from behind them, a door opened, and a voice, one they hadn't heard in centuries, called out. Ash Walker, you woke me up. And out stepped something wrapped in rags with Rowan's eyes, but Mara's smile. The bride of the void. Ash Walker stood frozen. The door was still open. The air behind it wasn't air. It was memory liquefied. Colors that didn't exist, Screams looped into lullabies. And from that impossible dark, she emerged. Not Mara. Not anymore. Her body was human-shaped. But the skin moved, like thoughts crawling underneath. She smiled, and it was Mara's smile. But her eyes belonged to the void. You left me in the dream, she said softly. So I made it my home. Eli tried to stand, but collapsed, coughing black fluid. Ash Walker stepped between him and the thing wearing Mara's face. Mara died, she whispered. I saw her blood. The creature tilted its head. I did die. I also didn't. Things work differently where I've been. You wouldn't believe what grows in a god's ribcage. Ash Walker's fingers sparked. Her runes itched like they were alive. You're not her. I'm every version of her, it said. The one who burned. The one who screamed. The one who begged. The one who watched you walk away. I remember it all. Then she smiled wider, and the walls cracked. Eli looked up, voice shaking. She's not here to kill you. Ash Walker narrowed her eyes. What? She's here to marry you. The creature stepped forward, dragging a train of shadows and bones. I've walked through the veins of forgotten gods. I've kissed the mouth of time. And do you know what I saw every step of the way? She pointed at Ash Walker's heart. You're the end of my story, and I'm the beginning of yours. Ash Walker backed away, but the creature whispered a word, and reality folded. Suddenly they weren't in the cathedral. They were in a church. Pinewood pews, stained glass windows, a sky bleeding stars, and every person she had ever lost sat in the crowd. Rowan, her old self, every version of Eli, even the dead children from the compound, all clapping, all smiling. The thing in the veil stood at the altar, glowing. You can't kill me, Ash. Not anymore. You bound me to you when you made your choice. Ash Walker trembled. What choice? You chose to survive, and I was the price. Lightning cracked. The chapel peeled away, and Ash Walker was standing inside a mouth the size of a city, on a tongue made of screaming saints with a sky of swirling eyes. The wedding had begun. Say I do, the creature said, stepping closer, shedding her veil. Or I show you what love really costs. Ash Walker clenched her fists, runes blazing, heart breaking. And just before she screamed, a shot rang out. The creature jerked back, her shoulder exploding in flame. Behind her, dragging a gun made from the bones of the first martyr, stood a figure with burning hair and a cigarette hanging from cracked lips. It was Rowan, but not the god, not the mother, just the woman. Nobody takes my daughter, Rowan said, cocking the gun again. Not even her damn wife. The wedding pyre. The veil burned first. Ash Walker didn't wait for vows. She didn't wait for a sign. She became it. Rowan's bullet ripped through the creature's shoulder, but it didn't slow her down. The thing that was Mara turned and screamed, and the sky split open like paper soaked in oil. Then Ash Walker exploded. Not her body. Her will. Her rage. Every rune on her skin ignited in black flame. Her voice shattered glass in the realm between realms, and where she stood, the ground turned to molten ash. You want love. You want me. You want a wedding? Her voice became thunder. I brought a funeral instead. Rowan launched herself at the creature, firing again, each shot laced with sigils made from her own blood and the teeth of angels. The creature dodged, moving like wind wrapped in grief. Her body shifted, arms turning into wings, face into fire, legs into roots of ancient trees. I waited for you, the creature howled at Ash Walker. You waited to own me, Ash Walker replied, stepping forward, eyes glowing pure white. But I'm not something you inherit. I'm the fire you drown in. The church warped. It became the woods again, but not how they remembered it. Everything alive was dead. Everything dead was whispering. The pines bled black. The ground pulsed like muscle. And above, the moon opened its eye. This wasn't just a showdown. This was a ritual. Ash Walker grabbed Rowan's broken gun, shattered it in her hands, and formed a blade from the remains, jagged, glowing, alive. She looked at the creature once called Mara, and finally asked, Why did you come back? The thing stopped just for a breath, and in that breath, she looked human. Tears rolled down her stolen face. Because I couldn't let go. Not of you. not of what we could have been. Ashwalker stepped forward, blade lowered. I loved you, she whispered. I still do, the creature said. Then Ashwalker smiled. A tear rolled down her cheek, and she drove the blade through the creature's heart. There was no scream, just silence, heavy, final. The woods fell still. The moon shut its eye, and the altar cracked in two. Rowan fell to her knees, coughing blood. Ash, she whispered. Ashwalker caught her mother as she slumped. I'm here. Rowan looked up, eyes flickering with deathlight. I never wanted this for you. Ashwalker smiled. Then why did you make me like this? Rowan blinked. To survive. Ashwalker leaned close. I'm not here to survive. I'm here to end it all. Rowan's lips parted to answer, but she was already gone. The wind howled, and somewhere in the distance, the mouths beneath the cathedral began to sing once more. Only this time, they weren't chanting for gods or devils or brides. They were chanting her name. Ashwalker, Ashwalker, Ashwalker. She stood alone in the ashes, sword in one hand, her mother's blood on the other, and behind her the horizon cracked open, revealing something massive, ancient, and waiting. The true god. It wasn't Rowan. It wasn't Mara. It was the first flame, the one she was born to kill. Ashwalker looked into the fire and whispered, I'm coming for you next. The first flame. The sky was gone. Ashwalker stood at the edge of the world, the ruins of the pines smoldering behind her. Ahead, no horizon, just a yawning rift where reality peeled back to reveal something older than stars, something alive and on fire. A shape moved within the inferno. It had no form, but every soul it had ever devoured screamed through it, faces rising and vanishing in the blaze like dying prayers. It wasn't a god. It was what gods feared. The first flame, the hunger that birthed divinity, the echo that lit the universe and demanded sacrifice in return. And it whispered her name, not in reverence, but in recognition. Ashwalker stepped forward. With every inch, the ground turned to bone. The world forgot itself behind her. She didn't flinch, because she wasn't human anymore. She wasn't hybrid. She wasn't monster. She was the apology of the universe, given teeth and grief. The flame pulsed. You burn so brightly, child. Are you ready to learn the truth of your creation? Ashwalker raised her blade. I'm not here for riddles. The flame laughed, and the world trembled. But everything you fought, Rowan, Mara, the pines, they weren't enemies. They were prototypes. I made them to make you. Ashwalker faltered. What? You weren't born. You were designed. Every love, every loss, every trauma, I wrote it into your blood. I needed a perfect weapon to fight what comes after me. But you came too early. Suddenly the fires pulled back, revealing a massive cathedral of embers and time. Inside, 1,000 coffins floated. Each one glowed. Each one bore her face. Some older, some younger, some broken, some burning. All of them her. I killed you over and over and rewrote your soul each time, said the flame. Until I got this version. The defiant one. The one who wouldn't kneel. Ashwalker gritted her teeth, blade shaking. You used my whole life as a lab experiment. No, child. The flame said with something almost like sorrow. I used your soul to save everything. You're not my enemy. You're my final bullet. And from behind the flame, a second rift opened. But this one bled darkness, a void where light screamed and died. From that rift stepped something even the first flame turned away from. It had no face, no form, just gravity, and the smell of endings. The flame whispered, shaking. They found us, the ones older than fire, the ones I ran from. Ashwalker stood between them, fire to her left, void to her right, and her own shattered reflection in every coffin behind her. You want me to choose? She asked. The flame said yes. The void said nothing, just reached out. And for the first time, Ashwalker didn't know which path meant destruction, because both wanted her, and both had made her. She closed her eyes, and inside her chest, something cracked. Not her heart, her soul. It split in two, one half flame, one half void. And then a third spark lit inside her. Untouched, unclaimed, something new. Ashwalker opened her eyes and laughed. You think I'm a weapon? She turned to the flame. You think I'm your bullet? She turned to the void. You think I'm your vessel? She raised her sword high. I'm the mistake you made too late. And she ran forward into both. The world shattered. Not exploded. Not collapsed. Shattered. Like glass dropped in a church. Like a mirror held up to something with no reflection. And as everything crumbled, a new world stirred. Built from ashes. Lit by a flame that didn't burn. Ruled by a girl who was no longer anyone's daughter. To be continued. If you would like to know what's next for Ashwalker, please join me next week for more. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.